Here are some references from Fate's Strange Fate. One of the reasons why Fate fans are obsessed with Watch Order is that there are some characters from the Nasuverse, like the main character from the case files of Lord Elmelio II, or Waver from Fate Zero. And there's even a Rider cameo. I miss that man. His assistant Gray is also from the case files anime. Jester Carture is a dead apostle, or a human that was turned to a vampire from Tsukihime. And just like in Tsukihime, when you brutally maim a vampire, they also fall in love with you. Rin Tosaka from Fate Stay Night and Luvia from Fate Hollow Ataraxia also makes a brief cameo in this photo. Ayaka is a reference to Ayaka Saijo from Fate Prototype, which was the original concept for Fate Stay Night. Caster here is eating Inside Out, which is a parody of In and Out. Since this anime takes place in 2009, everyone is still using Windows XP. The end credits features the cast holding each other's hands and smiling, which is a cheeky reference to Carnival Phantasm that had a very similar ending. Also, nice addition of Assassin refusing to hold her master's hand. Of course, even this saber has an "Are you my master" moment. Orlando has a gun that spawns FGO mobs. The reason this anime takes place in America is because the author Ryoko Narita, who also wrote Bakuno and Dorarara, made an April Fool's joke called Fate States Night in 2008, and then decided to make it real. Finally, you see the back of a blonde woman. The anime makes it seem like a reference, but this is just a big nobody that no one cares about. Are there any other references that I missed? This is Type Moon, of course I have. Here are some references from Fate Strange Fate. Jester mentions the Burial Agency from Tsukihime, which is a group of special inquisitors gathered by the Holy Church, whose sole job is to eradicate inhuman monsters like dead apostles. Of course, Lord Elmeloi's flashback of is a one-to-one recreation from Fate Zero. Hansa Cervantes uses black keys to fight, which is the common weapon for all executors in the Nasuverse. Cervantes also has a chainsaw for a leg, which technically this was written 3 years before Chainsaw Man. But since one of the directors of the anime, Takahito Sakazume, worked on the Chainsaw Man movie, he actually got the movie's character designer, Kazutaka Sugiyama, to personally animate the scene. One of the second key animators who worked on the Cervantes vs. Jester fight posted fan art referencing the Naoya hair flip from Jujutsu Kaisen. That being said, Gilgamesh also flips his hair. But that has to be a coincidence, right? This Yorha-looking executor looks a lot like 2B from Nier Automata, which is funny since A1 Pictures also created the Nier Automata anime. Orlando got a package from Kairi Shishigo, who is from Fate Apocrypha. Although since this is a different timeline, it's not the same Shishigo, but it's still him. Anyways, he sent a Hydra dagger, which is from Fate Grand Order. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references from Fate Strange Fake. When Archer uses his shields to block my wife's attack, one of the shields is the Achilles Cosmos, a noble phantasm from the heroic spirit Achilles that was given to Astolfo to use in Fate Apocrypha. Archer also has the Shield of Divine Iron that is typically wielded by Valkyries in Fate Grand Order, and Leonidas' shield also makes a brief appearance. True Archer's true name is Ascides, which is the birth name of the Greek hero Heracles. In Fate Stay Night, Heracles is the true name of the Berserker heroic spirit, who is voiced by Saizen Tadahisa. This man has been voicing the same heroic spirit for 20 years, and now, in Strange Fake, he can finally speak normally. True Rider might look like Saber, but cuter. However, her true name is Hippolyta, the daughter of Ares, the god of war, and Atreia, the first queen of the Amazons. Hippolyta has beef with Heracles since, to put it simply, he pretty much killed her and stole her father's belt, which was briefly shown in Heaven's Feel. However, she is more upset that Ascides tried to kill a young girl, since Hippolyta still considers Heracles an honorable hero that would never do that. Which, in Fate Stay Night, Heracles does whatever he can to protect Ilia from which is subverted here by having Archer protect Teeny from Ascides. Fun fact, in America lore, Hippolyta is the mother of Wonder Woman. The guitar that Saber is playing is a Gibson Les Paul. Saber reveals that he was killed by Pierre Bazil. This pretty much reveals Saber's true name, but that's still a spoiler, so I won't say anything. Oh. Okay, are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references from Fate Strange Fate. Francesca has a sweet tooth, and since we're in America, she can buy herself 5 pounds of apple twisters, which is a parody of the Twizzlers licorice, one of America's oldest candies. This nameless child soldier has a dog tag with the Sigma symbol on it, so he's literally a Sigma male. And because he's so Sigma, he has no true desires. So he manages to summon a Watcher servant who is going to turn him into the Lancer class. Since the Watcher can't talk, it manifests shadows to communicate. These shadows can resemble heroic spirits like Icarus, Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine, Orion on Ozempic, Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, and Amelia Earhart. with a weave? Sigma also had a mother that died in Japan. Her silhouette is briefly shown, but it does resemble Maya Hisao from Fate Zero. Flat is having a cup of coffee here at a Phantom Cafe, which is a parody of the Fair Oaks Pharmacy and Soda Fountain, which is not in Nevada, it's actually located in South Pasadena, California. Now that more servants have been introduced, we need a new ED to accommodate them, as they enjoy their stay at this casino, which seems like an amalgamation of Bellagio and the Venetian, which includes our famous Eiffel Tower that only exists in America and nowhere else. Truecaster's true name is Francois Prelati, who was an Italian alchemist who worked under Giles de Rais, previously featured in Fate Zero. Yes, Francesca is Francois in a female body, and she basically summoned himself as a heroic spirit. Francesca has been killed many times. One person in particular that killed her is Scar Red, who is actually Toko Aozaki from Kara no Kyokai, who had a brief cameo in the ending of Heaven's Feel. Since the Holy Grail is supposed to be a secret to civilians, you might be wondering how the US government is covering up the collateral damage. And the easy answer is through X. The anime has an official X role-playing account that pretends to cover up all these attacks, I mean gas leaks. This is a reference to... Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. This RG can is a reference to RC Cola, which is low-key underrated. The You and Me slogan is based off the Me and My RC Cola ad campaign that originally came out in the 70s. Little Red Riding Hood is a fairy tale written by Charles Perrault, but this particular story of Red Riding Hood and Mr. A is actually from the prologue of Fate Hollow Ataraxia. True Saber is Richard I of England, or Richard the Lionheart. While he may be the biggest King Arthur glazier in the anime, in real life, there is no historical evidence that he was obsessed with the legend, although the legend was very popular amongst his people, so there is a chance that he could have been a simp. He also names drops Locksley, or Robin Hood, and the Knight of the Lake, or Lancelot. Fake Lancer's true name is Enkidu, an ancient Mesopotamian hero who's besties with Gil. He mentions defeating a bull. This is a reference to the bull of heaven that attacked Gil on Ishtar's orders because Gil didn't like her like that. When Ayaka Saijo receives a text message, the notification sound effect is
"You got mail,"
which is the iconic sound effect from AOL Instant Messenger.
You've got mail.
Ayaka Saijo has a dream featuring Saint Germain, who was over 500 years old in real life. He also has killed Francesca Prelati in the past. You might be wondering why this episode seems different and more experimental. That's because this episode was directed by Hiro Takamori of Heavenly Delusion fame and newcomer Shun Miyakawa, who also storyboarded this episode. Blonde Hippolyta might seem important, but I don't actually know who this is. Maybe she had a role in the visual novel, but I guess we'll never know since it's lost media. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. Finally, after 7 episodes, the entire cast for this anime has been introduced, starting with Haruhi Vorzak, who is related to Odd Vorzak from Fate Zero, who became a dead apostle. Oof, that pun kinda stings. And then we have Philia, who is a Mesopotamian goddess inside an Ainsberg homunculus body, which are like artificial humans created by alchemy. But who is this goddess? Well, if you know your history, then you probably know who she is. If you've seen the FGO anime, then you probably know who she is. And if you know what Philia means, then you're probably a weirdo. Anyways, you're not supposed to know who she is, so stop spoiling. Sigma lies to Faldius and tells him that he summoned a Lancer servant named Charlie Chaplin, an iconic movie star during the silent era. Haruhi can be seen carrying shopping bags with a cursive Aniplex logo on it. Who produced this anime? Haruhi is struggling because she's carrying all the money that Aniplex has made recently. Bazdalot summons more FGO mobs, like the Demon Boars and the Mushushu. Alcides uses Stymphalian birds to attack, which are man-eating birds with bronze beaks that Heracles had to fight during his 12 labors. Ayaka Saijo in the OP, she now smiles at Saber. Probably because she has a Valentine's and you don't. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. Orlando in the OP carries around a Snowfields Times newspaper. This is a parody of the Los Angeles Times newspaper as the font is rather similar. Flat invades the Snowfield police station, otherwise known as the Los Angeles City Hall. One of Castor's favorite plays was Hamlet, which is a famous tragedy written by William Shakespeare in 1599. However, Castor saw the version of Hamlet written by Jean-François Ducis in 1769, who didn't do a good job translating the original story to French, and basically changed the entire plot in order to appeal to the French audiences at the time. One of the earliest examples of localization. Castor actually reveals his true name through his signature. Now, if you're still able to read cursive, then you'll know who he is. Great Big Ben London Star is the nickname of Waver Velvet. So why does Waver have this nickname? I'm not really sure, but considering all his female students want to do a mana transfer with him, he probably has a Big Ben somewhere. Tsubaki's police report states that her father is interested in the Makiri. The Makiri family is just just another name for the Mattel family. Oh, God, no. Currently, Hansa Cervantes and the Holy Church are operating out of the historic St. Andrew's Catholic Church in Pasadena, California. When Flat finds out Hansa is a cyborg, he starts geeking out and starts referencing mecha anime like the Rocket Punch from Mazinger and a drill hand from Gurren Lagann. Alcide Oro farms on top of the Cerberus, which is a three-headed good boy that belongs to Hades. During the 12 Labors, Heracles was able to capture Cerberus. John Wingard's mother died in a plane crash from a terrorist attack. Now that could be a reference to when Kuretsugu blew up a plane in Fate Zero, but since they are American and this does take place in 2009, they might have died from another plane crash. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. Jester name drops the Knight of Wallachia, who is also a dead apostle, and the main villain in the Melty Blood games. Jack the Ripper is an interesting heroic spirit. Since we don't know their true identity, the heroic spirit is based on the many theories on who Jack could have been, so their abilities typically reflect that. For example, while he can't shapeshift into anybody, he usually takes the form of a cop. Since a popular theory is that only a cop would have the resources to get away with the Whitechapel murders. Jack the Ripper's noble phantasm is called From Hell, which is a famous letter that Jack the Ripper sent to George Lusk, along with a kidney, in order to flex on the investigators. Because the letter was addressed from hell, people started to believe Jack was an actual devil, which is fitting that he resembles a demon from FGO, or a devil man from Go Nagai. When Jack the Ripper manifests more versions of themselves, these are actually the other classes that they could be summoned as. Even the Jack the Ripper from Fate Apocrypha makes a cameo. You know, the version where they turned Jack the Ripper into a little girl because people thought Jack the Ripper was an actual evil spirit from all the dead babies thrown in the river seeking revenge on the prostitutes that abducted them. Yeah, it's kind of up, isn't it? Jack the Ripper's severed head talking to John Wingard is a reference to when Android 16 did the same to Gohan in Dragon Ball Z. Unfortunately for John, he isn't Gohan, he's just an NPC. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. Ayaka has a flashback where she sees Kirie Kotomine from Fate Stay Night, and a child Gilgamesh. Well, child Gilgamesh is mostly featured in Fate Hollow Ataraxia, which I guess makes sense since Red Riding Hood is also featured in that game. Fate Caster's true name is Alexander Dumas, but Flats references 3 of them. There was Thomas Alexander Dumas, the general under Napoleon. He had a son named Alexander Dumas, the author of the Three Musketeers, or in this case, Fate Caster. And then, Fate Caster had a bastard son, also named Alexander Dumas, who was the author of The Lady of Camillas. Fate Caster's noble phantasm, Musketeer Masquerade, allows him to buff humans by essentially rewriting their life. So Aljabbers did kill a John Wingard, but with Musketeer Masquerade, he brought him back to life and finally created John Strange Fake. Philia is actually Ishtar, the Mesopotamian goddess of fertility, who had beef with Gilgamesh since he rejected her and pretty much called her a thought. Well, unfortunately for Gilgamesh, she found his key and closed his gate of Babylon that he left behind in the cave that he was summoned. In all fairness though, only Ishtar can use that key properly since she knows where the gates of Babylon is. And what were the chances that a vengeful goddess would show up? It did take 2 servants and a goddess to beat him, alright? He's not a jobber, damn it! Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. Gray from the Case Files name drops Rintosika, the mage with the most famous thighs in the Nasuverse. True Saber's mother is Eleanor of Aquitaine, a powerful woman who was once the Queen of France and the Queen of England. Fun fact, Olenna Tyrell from Game of Thrones was inspired by Eleanor of Aquitaine. King Richard I, despite being the King of England, did not actually know how to speak English because he grew up speaking French. Good thing everyone in Fate America speaks Japanese. While King Richard I might seem like a golden retriever, he was still involved in the Third Crusade. The anime features an art piece depicting the massacre of Ayade. One of the biggest revelations from the episode is that there are 2 Ayaka Sayajos. It's really strange, but I think our Ayaka might be a fake, and the one in Romania might actually be the Ayaka from Fate Prototype. Gilgamesh surprisingly has a statue of Ashur-nasir-pal II, the 3rd king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. I would have expected him to have statues of himself, but I guess he's not that narcissistic. This statue was originally located at the Temple of Ishtar, so maybe he stole it to ragebait her. Speaking of ragebait, Ishtar was summoned not by the Holy Grail, but because she placed a blessing to protect humanity that will only activate if somehow Gilgamesh and Enkidu got back together. So really, she's just a petty bitch that will always third wheel Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. This Clan Kaladin officer here with the afro and the 6 sideburns is pretty much a reference to Shaft. If only Orlando let him keep the mustache. Detective Waver has a Windows Vista's laptop and uses Internet Explorer to browse 4chan of all places. There's even an anon that wrote, "Just because you're correct doesn't mean you're right." An infamous line from a certain redhead. Fake Rider is Pale Rider, or one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, from the Book of Revelation, probably representing pestilence, but definitely a bringer of death. He's usually just a chill guy that wants to make a little girl happy, but unfortunately, Tsubaki wished to be a magician. Sigma receives the God-felling crossbow, or a chukonu, a repeating crossbow from ancient China. Jiao is a shark. I'm sure in Season 2 we'll find out their true identity, but for now, it's an ancient Chinese shark, dressed like a koi fish. But in Japanese, they say ko, because jiao is how they say shark in modern Mandarin. But in ancient/Middle China, they pronounce this character as gao. And somehow gao turned into ko because language is weird like that. Are there any other references that I missed? Check out these references in Fate Strange Fake. The Pylades make it rain sweets, and it's able to pacify Cerberus. This is a reference to the Virgil poem Iliad, where the heroes Aeneas and Sibyl bypass Cerberus by feeding him a laced honey cake. This shot, the Holy Grail, is a reference to the iconic 20th Century Fox bumper that plays before a movie, which is fitting because A1 Pictures decided to recap Fate Zero and animate some iconic moments using their own style, featuring my true wife, King Arthur. They mainly focus on the Banquet of Kings, where we see Waver's original servant Ryder, or Alexander the Great, and even Emiya Kiritsugu himself. In episode 3, Gilgamesh made sure to prepare parachutes for Tine in case the building blows up. And of course he wasn't joking because he's our king. Jester's true name is Dorothea, and he freaks out because no one should know that unless we introduce another new character named Valerie Fernand Vandelstam, or Sir Van Femme for short, who is an elder titled dead apostle, basically a really old vampire whose silhouette was in the Tsukihime remake, and was featured in The Adventures of Lord Elmello II light novels. He runs a casino in Monaco and pretty much calls Jester a fake who sells out his values to be a simp or assassin. But to be fair, I would do the same, even if it was Haram. But why is Flats friends with an ancient vampire? Well, I guess we'll never know. Maybe we'll find out in Season 2. Are there any other references that I missed? Are you looking forward to Season 2? What's the proper watch order for Fate? Now that Fate Strange Fake will release weekly instead of yearly, this will be a lot of people's first exposure to a Fate anime. Now the normie answer would be to just watch whatever that interests you. There's an anime for all types of people. Of course, you probably won't understand everything, and there will be tons of references that you won't get without prior knowledge. But if you end up liking the anime that you watched first, you'll end up watching the rest later. However, there are some fans that are adamant that you follow the proper watch order, and that starts with Fate Stay Night, the visual novel, not the anime. But that's actually wrong. You don't start with a VN, you actually start with the histories of the kings of Britain. You need to know the lore of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Otherwise, you're going to be very confused when this cute blonde shows up. Supplementary reading includes the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Cattle Raid of Cooley, Diogany, Musashi, Alamu, and of course, Disney's Hercules. It seems overwhelming, and it is. You see, a lot of people don't actually know how to read, so you actually need a master's degree in English to develop reading comprehension before you even start reading Fate Stay Night. And the best way to start learning English is to start from the very beginning, which is to learn the alphabet. I recommend Dr. Seuss's ABCs. But there are some fans that are purists and do not like the English translations because it could get localized into something woke like making King Arthur a girl or something, which is why you need to read Genki and work your way up so that you can learn the 3 Japanese writing systems: hiragana, katakana, and kanji. After finally learning Japanese, you can properly read Fate Stay Night. And once you're done reading all the routes, then you can finally watch Diana Morgan's Kunk on Britain, and you will finally understand this joke.
King Arthur came a lot, didn't he?
Actually, I lied. You're gonna need to watch Fate Apocrypha and maybe put in 100 hours at FGO to even understand what I'm referencing. Anyways, if you want the actual answer, just watch Emiya-san Chi no Kyo no Gohan because it's objectively the best route, and it's what Nasu would have wanted.
100円ください。100円ください。